Well, see, one of the things too, when you get that, flip the script, see what it looks like from the other side of the mirror. And what you're getting is they want election security so no one will be able to go in and back check their assertions. That's what they're talking about, really. In other words, okay, let's sidetrack this, sidestep it, go around it, and say the issue is we need to make the records more difficult to assess or access rather than making them more open and more accurate, and also to reveal any efforts of fraud, like that thing with the flood down in the, what is it, the FedEx, what is it?
Oh, that was the flood that was during the election in Atlanta. Was that at the Mercedes place?
What?
Rambo? Was that the State Farm? The State Farm?
I believe it was the State Farm Arena.
Yeah, State Farm Arena. That raises all kinds of red flags. Like, what was going on? Who was watching this stuff? Nobody's down there sloshing around in the water to make sure that even though their shoes were getting wet, nobody was tampering. Or was that even real as an accident, or was it planned like the break-in?
So
I'll give you. I did say that I was going to give you the last, but
I want to ask you. Do y'all have just 10 more minutes?
Sure, I'll make mine in 3. So watch this. Is that election security? When we take it to another level in terms of being on the watch out, looking for vulnerabilities, threats, all those things, is actually the constituted duty of the sheriff. The Board of Commissioners, particular one individual, Rob Pitts, circumvented and took away the election security function from the sheriff and gave it to the Fulton County Police Department, which essentially was not consistent with the duties that they did. So again, who is to benefit from going around? Fulton is way away from constitutional government. Why? Because not only are they showing that they're deliberately indifferent in terms of how they're functioning and managing the jail, now they're showing that they're deliberately indifferent in terms of how they run their elections.
May I say this, since we have a former chief of police for Atlanta, Davis, here in Memphis, who got terminated in Atlanta, was about to be terminated in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and became the first civil service chief we had in 41 years, rather than somebody who was just subject to the mayor's pleasure.
Right.
You don't have a very good record for police department integrity when it comes to somebody at the top managing them. And that's suspect. And also, the chief of police is not answerable to the people like the sheriff is.
And to your point, Judge, we've got it on video of that argument actually happening, that confrontation between Rob Pitts and Sheriff Patrick Labatt about the role of the sheriff in elections. So much it's on document that Labatt lost his mind at the emergency management meeting, where they systematically had set him aside from having any functioning role. How the hell do you do that when that is what your constituted duty is under 1516-10?
You can't do that legally, but nobody's challenging them. Did the sheriff Labatt challenge them, or did he just let it ride?
He let it ride. It was more or less.
Of course. Look at that mess that he's implicated in with Fannie Willis, and what's been going on with about, clearly, is misappropriation of public funds, money laundering perhaps, and embezzlement, if not outright theft, allegedly. And we've got this Stonewall. It's just absurd. Don't the people in this area get into, hey, these things are for our own protection? Why do we collaborate with them?
I want to play a clip of Rudy Giuliani talking about this Georgia voter fraud, because Republicans are demanding full restitution for Rudy Giuliani, who was charged with 13 felony counts and fined $148 million after contesting Georgia's 2020 election following Fulton County's admission that 315 votes were fraudulently counted for.
Must be really nice to not get elected and have to go through an election and still act like you're the president. I mean, nobody elected those guys and women. President selected them. A few of them obvious mistakes. I mean, the one who can't define a woman, how is she going to figure out presidential power? She doesn't know what a woman is. By the way, you should never have graduated from grammar school if you don't know what a woman is. 3 men who escaped the Atlanta jails, who were murderers, were recaptured, which is really good because I've seen the inside of an Atlanta jail, and it's horrendous. Having been, persecuted by Fulton County, who's now been proven to be wrong. And I just want you to reflect one more time of the last week, because we've now had the number 300,000 thrown around twice in the last 6 months, or maybe not 6 months, a year. A while back, about a year ago, there was a discovery of over 300,000 missing at ballots from Georgia. Now there are 315,000 ballots that were not authorized, not certified, don't have any appearance of legitimacy, such that they should not have been counted. Yeah, I mean, what are they? They're probably the ones that were done in the little factory they had 3 blocks away where they were printing up ballots. Now, 300,000 of those disappeared. This is another 300,000 we're talking about. We don't know who those 300,000 were for. We think they were Fulton County. We're not sure. These we know come from Fulton County. So we know that if you took these 315,000 ballots out, Biden would have gotten smashed in the election, because he won Fulton County like 8-2. So figure 8-2, you take out 315,000 ballots, Trump wins by over 100,000, which is what I originally said a long time ago, before they tried to destroy me, put me in bankruptcy, take away my law licenses, and not just me, lots of other people. Some worse, some less. Okay, we went through that because we believed it and we ended up telling the truth. Now, what's going to happen to them for having lied and for having committed horrendous crimes? Trying to prosecute or prosecuting and arresting innocent individuals is a horrible crime. And if you let people get away with it, they continue to do it if they're bad people, like a lot of the Democrats are. If these people are not held to account during this 2-3 year period, if and when the Democrats come back as the crooked party that they are right now, they're going to do it again, whether it's the same people or new people. I mean, part of the reason they did it under Biden is because I do think the president, out of the goodness of his heart, made a mistake in not prosecuting in 17. I was very much in favor of, I wanted to arrest Hillary and prosecute her. I mean, smashing up computers and destroying emails. And Ted?
Mayor.
I see you there under, I don't know what.
Yeah, well, we are here in live from Miami, Florida, my first Christmas Eve from South Florida. But I had a question about this. At the time when you were working on this in Georgia, I distinctly remember you also had efforts in Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, where you were talking to the state legislatures. And you and your team, Mayor, at the time, you were working within the Constitution. That's the ironic part about this, right? And what they claimed you guys were doing. When you were working on this, every day, every discussion I remember being a part of or listening in on involved how you were doing this in a way that respected the Constitution, right? And you were talking to the legislatures. You were going to meet with them, including in Georgia. Did you have support at the time in the state of Georgia?
Oh, my goodness, yeah. That's a very good point, Ted. The single best report then written about that election was written by Senator Ligon of Georgia It was completed. It was completed just about now, like right around Christmas, a little after Christmas still in 2020. And if you read that report, and you read it carefully, about half of it is the work that we supply, the evidence that we, meaning Trump's, not just me, but Trump's lawyers in general. The other half he developed himself. And he proves about 4 different ways that Trump won the state. This is way back. And he asked in the name of any number of senators for, I believe, 10 more days from Vice President Pence in order to, in order to develop that and get a vote of the full Senate. Now, frankly, it was being delayed, among others, by the Republican governor, and of course, the very, very questionable Secretary of State Raffensperger. So, like when the president said to Raffensperger, "Can you find me 11,000 votes?" He really meant out of 600,000 that are in doubt, right? And he said it at the time. He said, "I didn't tell him to make up phony votes. There were plenty of phony votes to just go find." Everybody knew that. It's right there. If he went to the Ligon report, he could have found, it wasn't quite that many in the Ligon report, but it was a couple 100,000. So that was one done by the legislature based on 110 witnesses. Of course, totally ignored by the press, who still write, including the Wall Street Journal and the Post, the president's false claims that the election was fixed. At least they have to write that the president believes, and actually, if you go to, you can find a similar report in Wisconsin written by a great judge who they've maligned horribly about how Wisconsin, Trump clearly won, and exactly how they phonied the votes there. In Pennsylvania, they don't even know how many votes were cast. They never figured it out. It shifted every day. I mean, enough votes had to be cast so that Biden could win. Every time you would give a total number, something went wrong. There's no question that those 3 states and Arizona are states that by the time we got to the hearings that Pence presided over, it was clear that those 4 states Trump had won. And when they say Pence was asked to violate the Constitution, he was not. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the vice president, he's called the president of the committee of the whole. Then there's nothing in the Constitution that says he can't hold up the vote until right before the inauguration, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says that he can. Nothing says he can. Nothing says he can't. And so it becomes a question of what do you assume the powers of the chair are? Does the chair have the power to raise questions about the legitimacy of votes that are presented? It would seem to me it does. Other vice presidents have taken that position, so he wouldn't be alone. And that's why I think Republicans are very angry at Pence and will never forgive him, because he wasn't being asked to do anything illegal. There's nothing illegal about it. Now, there are other things that were completely legal, like the alternate electors who poor people got indicted, some of them destroyed, are perfectly authorized and legal. They happened before. Kennedy and Nixon did it. And nobody would report that either. And judges didn't even care until eventually several of those cases were dismissed by judges. Before the ultimate dismissal of the case in Georgia.
If I could clarify what he's trying to say, there are 2 things. He's stating them in a very clumsy fashion. One, Sheriff, you'll back me up on this. A lot of legal proceedings are initiated by someone acting upon, quote, knowledge, information, and belief. You've heard that.
Yes.
So they prosecuted Giuliani and others for acting upon knowledge, information, and belief. But it's even worse because they didn't get a chance to act. All they did was urge that these things be investigated that through their knowledge, information, and belief had come to their attention. So you get prosecuted for simply pointing something out that needs to be investigated. That is absurd, and that's why we have the Bill of Rights that was ratified in 1791 in order to deal with that particular possibility of using the criminal process of American law for political persecution. The other thing, relative to what Trump told Pence or suggested that Pence do in 2020, was to evoke the Confidence in Elections Act of 1877, which says if there is widespread dispute or lack of confidence in the outcome of an election for members of the board of the Electoral College to select the president, the vice president shall decline to ratify the results and shall instead appoint a 15-man committee, 5 to be from the Senate, 5 from the House, and 5 from the Supreme Court, over which one of the members of the Supreme Court, who shall be the Chief Justice, shall preside over the proceedings. Said board shall take a minimum of 10 days to re-audit the election process and such extra time as is necessary before ratification of the submitted election results shall occur. Now, that's all he was saying. Follow the law, which is still on the books, the Confidence in Elections Act of 1877 that was promulgated by Congress upon similar circumstances 130 some years ago. 40 some years ago. So it is what it is. Now, next thing too is that in this whole process, it is extraordinary that someone is prosecuted for just attempting to have an open discussion about something. And it's interesting. From my research, had a political science degree for whatever it's worth, and I've over the last 55 years attempted to further that specialty. The third most common complaint in American politics over the last 200 plus years has been election integrity. So when you come up with something that is historically one of the most frequent problems with the American political system, meaning election integrity, and you dare to question something and you get prosecuted for it as a felon for merely bringing it up, something is way wrong with our system, because that kind of First Amendment advocacy that is encouraged by law and order considerations, prosecuting that just suggests that somebody can easily switch over to they don't agree with big brother, tranny, big sister, so let's go after them. And that's rather frightful, and people just don't get it because, no, why don't you just go along, man? It's not all that bad, man. Why are you always worried about something like that? Politics, man, doesn't concern us. And then you can't drive a car without undergoing the consequences of politics and who makes the traffic laws. You can't buy anything without the consequences of a legislative body's tax activities. You can't walk down the street with public safety in your benefit unless the people that you exercise the political process to put in positions to make these determinations are adequate and able. So this kind of thing is just kind of You know, like I vote the couch is just such a horrible cop out, along with this consequential thing of you just blindly accept what's on the media without trying to get into it. By the way, something came up too that is of consequence. If you Google something these days, up at the top, little way down from the top, there's a thing where you can opt out of having an AI resolution of your question. And before anybody gets, oh, well, what's wrong with AI? Well, a lot of lawyers, as you know, Sheriff, have been getting in trouble because they had AI draft their briefs. And then when they get into them, they found to be just totally a mess. So
That's what happened in the YSL trial with one of the attorneys that the judge blasted her and then told her she needed to go back to she sent her for some refresher training. But watch this. I wanted to add into what Giuliani stated. And I was adamant about not getting back involved in politics in this last election because I had 2 surgeries in 1 year. And that second surgery was right about the same time that Trump, Giuliani, and all the other 16 defendants were being booked into the jail. And I was called upon, I'm literally laying up in my recovery bed at home, and CNN Good Morning show called me and wanted to know about the booking process, in addition to what that looked like and how does that fare for persons who were dignitaries. Then after I gave a comprehensive response, that's when John King called upon me with the same question and gave such clarity to it. Today, and I'm not exaggerating, I have top ministers and political leaders that said that was the interview that actually helped get Trump and all of those folks in and out of the jail, because Sheriff Labatt was adamant, arrogant, and set on mugshots and fingerprints will be waiting on you. That's not a very diplomatic thing to say in such a high stakes case. It just shows there's some animus there. And as Giuliani said, he visited, and the jail was even the more central focus about its conditions than it was about them being actually booked in. So I'm glad, not saying that I'm tooting my horn, but I'm glad to be a part of the process, not because it's Donald Trump, not because it's the Republicans, it's not because of any of that, but because I believe in straight constitutional governance that could have nipped all this crap in the bud to begin with.
I'm just concerned about these pompous little spoiled brats that are in politics giving black folk a bad name with their arrogance, conceit, and general incompetence, where they got off about being so angry because they think they've been done wrong personally when all they've done is sat on top of the system and been able to take advantage of it, either from their affluent parents or all the way through, DEI and all that kind of stuff too. Where do they get this arrogance about somehow or another they are entitled to special treatment and they're not to be held by the rules?
I'm in the same quagmire of asking that Socratic question and getting some sufficient answers. When you find out, bring me back on the show and I'll be happy to entertain it.
Well, maybe some of the audience might come up with an answer, or at least think about it.
Listen, thank you both guys for talking about this, because this is holiday.
Watch, Dana. I promise you're gonna see some resignations here very soon.
Yes.
We'll see some indictments pretty soon. Let's have some deterrent effect so others similarly situated are deterred from committing similar criminal offenses.
Well, I definitely want to have you come back on so we could stay on top of this. So I really appreciate you, Rambo, for coming on and, shedding light on this situation, because you live in Fulton County. And of course, Judge, as always, the legal expertise on this as well. So Thank you guys, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Please like, share, and make sure you guys comment below, because the other show we did when we broke the news on the Fulton County voting fraud, a lot of people in the comment section were pissed off, and and rightfully so. So yeah, but thank you guys for bringing this to light and putting it out there.
Yes, ma'am. And happy holidays to you both.
Ho, ho, ho. I guess that's past, but may the season be one that leads to extended days and auspicious circumstances.
That's the old school player there.